Now to forecast what looks to be a favorable week for planners, here's UNL Extension statewide climatologist Al Dutcher.
Well, folks, it's time for the weather forecast for this week. And of course, if we look past this last week, the big news was the severe weather outbreak that we seen last Saturday, and some of that carried over also into Sunday. For Nebraska proper, the best estimate right now is around 12 confirmed tornadoes, and we may actually see those totals increase as more survey damage is done. But the real winners in terms of severe weather was the state of Kansas and Oklahoma, where we've seen well over 140 tornado reports. Now, not all of these were individual tornadoes. Well, some of these were multiple warnings, as you had tornadoes bumping up and down off of the ground and reforming. But overall, this is a pretty extensive, widespread severe weather event. And for Nebraska proper, we've seen some extremely heavy precipitation in short periods of time across portions of eastern Nebraska and southwest Nebraska. And as we got out to the Panhandle, unfortunately, we missed out on a lot of that exceptional weather. And we're starting to see drier conditions materializing. In fact, the drought monitor this week has now upgraded portions of the Panhandle to moderate drought conditions and reduced some of the area in northeast Nebraska from moderate drought conditions. But we have been lucky to get this precipitation. We're going to need to see more. The only thing I could have wished for on this entire storm event would have been a little bit slower pace in terms of precipitation, so we had less of a runoff component. But overall, a very positive trend. We're going to need to see more of this as we go into the future to make up these deficits that have accumulated. So do we have anything in the forecast? Let's take a look at the upper air models and see what we can expect as we go through this next week. And as we go to the upper air models for today, what you're going to notice is the trough that was responsible for the inclement weather that occurred on Thursday as a frontal system moved through the state has now formed a pretty significant troughing pattern over the Great Lakes region. And for us proper, we're going to be more in a north-northwesterly flow in the upper atmosphere. So some cooler conditions in northeastern Nebraska. We're probably looking at somewhere in the low to mid 60s. And as we get toward the southwest, as this ridge tries to build in, we'll be looking at highs that'll be in the low 70s, possibly even the mid 70s. Now, as we go to tomorrow, what we are going to notice is that trough deepens toward the eastern seaboard and this ridge starts to encroach into our region. So we're going to be looking at highs moving up the scale a little bit. We'll be looking at mid 60s across the northeast, and across southeastern or southwestern Nebraska, we'll be looking at the upper 70s. Now, as we get into Monday, we see a very significant warming trend in store for the state and good planting weather. We'll be looking at highs in the low 70s across the northeast to the mid 80s across the southwest. We're not expecting anything in the way of any precipitation, and even warmer conditions develop as we get into the Tuesday time frame. We're going to be looking at low 80s across the northeast, and as we get to southwestern Nebraska, we'll be looking at the upper 80s, possibly even low 90s. And for sure on Wednesday, we're going to start to see a troughing pattern try to break this ridge down, and that might generate some shower activity across the Dakotas, and some of that might clip portions of extreme northern Nebraska. We'll be looking at highs that'll drop slightly to the mid 70s across the north and into the mid 80s across the south. Now, as we go into Thursday, we're still looking for a zonal flow. We'll be looking at highs that'll be primarily in the low 80s across the north as the warm air tries to move in once again, to the upper 80s across the south, and once again we'll be looking at the possibility of thunderstorm development, particularly as we get into the Thursday night into Friday. And as we go to Friday, what we're going to see is that the system tries to push this ridge down a little bit farther. Our temperatures are going to decrease to the low 70s north to the low 80s across the south, and an increasing chance of precipitation as we have another trough moving out in association with the zonal flow in our region. So as we look to the 8 to 14 day forecast, and that'll take us from next weekend into the early part of the following week. We're looking at above normal temperatures across the eastern United States, and in terms of precipitation, with that system trying to move out, above normal moisture. Now, there is some discrepancy in where this will occur, and right now it seems to be tending more toward the north, but overall it looks to be a positive trend as we get into next weekend for precipitation.